Act 1. The Disaster. Chapter 1. The Orange Noon. The air in Oakhaven tasted like copper and scorched pine. For 3 weeks, the red warning had been in effect, but today was different. Leo stood on his porch, his Nikon hanging heavy around his neck. The sun was a dull, bruised grape behind a veil of gray. "Leo, get the crates," his father shouted from the driveway. They were packing the if boxes. If the wind changed, if the fire jumped the ridge. Leo didn't move. He was looking at the ridge through his telephoto lens. He saw the smoke, a towering pyrolytic cloud, but he also saw something else. On the restricted access road leading to the Ethelgard facility, 3 black SUVs were speeding toward the mountain, away from the evacuation route. Chapter 2. The Firestorm. The siren started at 2:14 p.m. It wasn't a gradual evacuation. It was a panic. The wind had shifted, gusting at 60 miles per hour, turning the ridge into a blowtorch. "We're leaving now," his mom yelled, grabbing his arm. As they piled into the station wagon, the sky turned black. Embers the size of quarters began falling like glowing snow. Leo looked across the street at the Miller house. Mr. Miller, an executive at Ethelgard, wasn't packing. He was standing on his lawn, staring at his watch, looking not afraid, but expectant. Chapter 3. The Ghost in the Smoke. Traffic was a nightmare. The main road out of the valley was a parking lot of glowing taillights and screaming engines. In the chaos, Leo saw his best friend, Sarah, in the car next to them. She looked terrified. Then the explosion happened. Not from the trees, from the direction of the Ethelgard substation. A blue-white flash that knocked out the power and the cell towers instantly. In the sudden darkness, Leo saw a figure running through the woods bordering the road. The person was carrying a heavy, metallic briefcase. They tripped, and for a second the firelight caught their face. It was Marcus, the high school track coach. He wasn't running for safety. He was heading toward the old mine shafts. Chapter 4. The Separation. The heat was becoming unbearable. "Get out of the car!" someone screamed. The brush fire had jumped the road ahead, trapping the line of cars. In the scramble to reach the emergency shelters on foot, Leo got separated from his parents in a wall of blinding white smoke. He stumbled toward the riverbed, the only place that felt safe. There, huddled under the stone bridge, he found Sarah. She was holding a discarded jacket she'd found. "Leo, look," she whispered, her voice trembling. She opened the jacket. Inside was a handheld radio still crackling. A voice came through, clear despite the interference. "The diversion is holding. Extraction at the mine entrance in T-60 minutes. Ensure the core is stabilized." Chapter 5. The Mystery Defined. The fire raged above them, turning the world into an oven, but the riverbed stayed cool enough to breathe. Leo looked at the radio, then at the ridge where the fire had started. "That wasn't the wind," Leo said, the realization chilling his blood. "They timed it. They used the fire to kill the power and clear the town." "Who?" Sarah asked. "Whoever Marcus is working for." Leo realized his father's office at the local paper had records of the Ethelgard blueprints. He also realized that if they didn't find out what was in that core, the disaster was just the beginning. ACT-1END. The town is burning, Leo is separated from his parents, and he has proof the disaster was a smokescreen for a high-stakes theft. Act 2. The investigation begins. The shelter. Leo and Sarah reach the Red Cross shelter at the gymnasium. It's a place of grief and ash. The clues. The radio frequency. Leo realizes the radio is set to a private security channel. The blueprint. Leo sneaks into the authorized personnel area to find a map of the old mines. The coach's locker. They find Marcus's discarded ID badge. It's been swiped at the facility after the fire started. The logbook. A frantic survivor mentions seeing technicians cutting the fire break lines rather than digging them. The suspects. Marcus, the coach, the muscle. Seen with the briefcase. Mr. Miller. The executive who looked expectant. Chief Holloway. The fire chief who seems to be intentionally directing the evacuation away from the mines. The twist. Leo finds his father's camera bag in the debris. His father was trailing the story before the fire started. His father is now missing. Act 3. Truth and Danger. The trek. Leo and Sarah slip out of the shelter to head toward the mines. The world is a lunar landscape of white ash and skeletal trees. The betrayal. They meet Chief Holloway, thinking he'll help. He tries to escort them back, but Leo notices Holloway is wearing the same tactical boots as the man he saw in the woods. The psychological strain. The heat, the lack of water, and the fear of the shifting fire create a pressure cooker effect. Sarah begins to doubt Leo, thinking he's chasing ghosts because he can't face the reality of the disaster. Major twist. They find the core. It's not money. It's a prototype atmospheric processor. Ethelgard didn't just hide a crime. They were testing a device that accidentally intensified the fire. The disaster was a failed experiment covered up as a heist. Act 4. Climax and Resolution. The confrontation. In the mouth of the mine, Leo and Sarah are cornered by Miller and Marcus. The fire is closing in on the mine entrance. The climax. Leo uses his knowledge of the mine's ventilation from his photography trips to create a backdraft, trapping the antagonists in a non-lethal but inescapable section of the tunnel. The resolution. Leo saves the data core, the evidence of Ethelgard's negligence. They are rescued by a helicopter search crew just as the mine entrance collapses. The aftermath. Months later, Oakhaven is rebuilding. Ethelgard is under federal indictment. Leo's father was found safe in a neighboring town's hospital. Character growth. Leo no longer just watches the world through a lens. He's learned that being observant is a responsibility. He carries a new camera, but he looks at the world with eyes that have seen the fire and survived. A sample of the prose style from Chapter 8. The gymnasium smelled of wet wool and unwashed fear. Every time the double doors opened, a draft of acrid smoke swirled in, reminding us that Oakhaven was still being erased. Sarah sat on the edge of a cot, her fingers tracing the charred hem of her sweatshirt. We should tell someone, Leo. A real adult. The adults are busy trying to stop the world from ending, I said, leaning against the brick wall. I pulled the radio from my bag. It felt hot, though that was probably just my imagination. And the one adult I saw out there wasn't trying to save anyone. He was carrying a payload. I looked at my hands. They were stained gray with ash, the lines of my palms mapped out in soot. I wasn't a detective. I was a kid who liked taking pictures of birds and old buildings. But I knew what I saw. The fire was a tragedy for the town. But for someone else, it was a golden opportunity.